Okay, so I just want to go over this article really briefly. Johnny Midnight and I were discussing this on our Esoteric Lectures channel. We mentioned this, and it's an article that just came out today about it. So I'm going to read it to you, and I'm going to explain to you what the deal is behind all this crap. So, I'm going to show you what's going on here from my take on it. So, whistling at this was today. This is about something going on in France about catcalling and asking women for their phone numbers. The title of the article: Women whistling at women and asking for their phone number could cost men more than 350 euros in France. Men in France could face a fine of 350 euros, which is US 435 if the following $435 if they follow women in the street. So 435, that's an interesting number. Whistling at them, make loud comments about their appearances, or asking for their phone numbers according to the draft proposal could combat sexual contempt. The new report will be presented to the French government in the coming days, local media report. The plans come from a parliamentary working group set up by the France's Secretary of State for Equality, and this is a woman that we talked about that we told you guys to pay attention for, and here it is. Marlena Shapiva. The politicians behind the proposal suggest that men who violate women's freedom of movement in public spaces should face a minimum fine of 90 euros for those who can pay it on the spot. If the fine is delayed, it could reach 350 euros, the report says. The document will be presented to Shapiva, whatever, Minister of Justice Nicole Belliubet, and Minister of Interior Gerard Colgum. Shapiva initially created for the legislation in October 2017, saying that street harassment could be a punishable offense. The 34-year-old feminist is working closely with French President Emmanuel Macron, who once said that harassment could be combated by creating a simpler verbalization procedure so that there is an immediate response when it occurs. A simpler verbalization procedure. What is that, like what, screaming out? He's asking for my phone number? The 25-year report, pardon me, the 25-year report has yet to be made public, as it is unclear what the author defines as being an example of sexual contempt towards women. Well, that's basically, they haven't decided it because it's whatever they say they want it to be, which I'll explain to you what that is. Alquest France newspaper, which saw the report, says that following a woman asking for her phone number and whistling at her could all be punishable, as would make loud remarks about women's looks. This all happens before insults and sexual assault, which are already punishable by the penal code, says Erwin Belliant, one of the authors behind the report. Bellion explains that these measures are necessary as that there isn't a police officer in every corner to stop every stalker. According to the High Council for Equality between Men and Women. According to the High Council of Equality between Men and Women? I didn't even know there was such thing. I'm going to explain to you what that is. That's the Anti-Sex League in 1984. It's not good. 100% of women claim that they have been harassed in public transport at least once, with 82% of those questioned being younger than 17 years old. If approved, the proposal will be presented at parliamentary debates in the National Assembly for the Senate later this year. Before receiving this report, Shapiva indicated that she favors even stronger measures, telling LCI News that there is a 90 fine, but it's a week. Critics of this measure also say that it might not go as far enough and may be purely symbolic. Now listen to this statement. Stalkers don't wait for a police officer to harass a woman. First of all, that sentence is contradictory in itself. That doesn't even make sense. Stalkers don't wait for a police officer to harass a woman. If you were to take that sentence and split it in two parts and diagram it, they're saying stalkers don't wait for for, and then a police officer to harass a woman. It's doublethink. It's almost like assuming police officers are harassing women. It doesn't even make sense. It's doublethink. I'll get into that too. So this is a doublethink article. Annis, founder of the Peta Shineka Facebook group, which lists the testimonies of harassed women, told LOBS newspaper. French media, however, has questioned how sexual contempt will be separated from flirting. Well, how could you separate? That doesn't, see, again, this is doublethink. On one side, they're telling, asking for the phone number, and then on the other side, they're saying, they've questioned how sexual contempt would be separated from flirting. You see, it's doublethink, and it doesn't make sense. Doublethink is designed to induce insanity, and that's the purpose of it. It's to confuse people. MEP Elise Vagelis, author of the report, has been accused of vagueness by answering, "Seduction should be done in a relationship of equality, not domination." Seduction should be done in a relationship of equality and not domination. Okay, so I'll explain to what that means, and this is the last part of the article. Earlier in January, Paris authorities announced a new measure to tackle harassment on public transport. Passengers on certain buses now have a chance to hop off at night even when the vehicle is not a designated stop. This is ridiculous. While a campaign against sexual harassment continues to gather its pace across the globe, numerous French celebrities have rallied against the hashtag MeToo movement. Catherine Deneuve, Brigitte Bardot, she's like 100 years old, and Lithania Kesta are amongst those who do not consider themselves to be feminists but say that flirting with a woman is not offensive. Okay, so here's the deal. I said that to explain to you what this is all about. Now I'm going to read you something from 1984, ladies and gentlemen, in a section called The Love Instinct in Family. And I'm going to explain to you what this whole article and where the agenda of where they're pushing this, where this is all going and what it really means. Okay, so get ready, here it comes. The party was trying to kill sexual attraction, or if it cannot be killed, then destroy it or dirty it. The aim of the party was not merely to prevent men and women from forming loyalties which it might not be able to control. Its real undeclared purpose was to remove all pleasure from the sexual act. No love so much as eroticism was the enemy inside marriages as well as outside of it. All marriages between party members had to be approved by the committee appointed for the purpose, and though the principle was never really clearly stated, permission was always refused if the couple concerned gave the impression of being physically attracted to one another. So that committee appointed is what they were referring to as this thing called the High Council for Equality between men and women. That would be like your Ministry of Love in 1984, or the Anti-Sex League, or what they just called here the committee appointed. Sexual intercourse was to be looked on as a slightly disgusting minor operation like having an enema. This again was never put into plain words, just like they're not putting what they're saying in the article in plain words. But in an indirect way, it was rubbed into every party member from early childhood and onwards. There were even organizations such as the Junior Anti-Sex League, which advocated complete celibacy of both sexes. That's what that group that in the article is calling. They're our modern-day version of the Anti-Sex League, okay? The poor quarters swarmed with women who were merely ready to sell themselves. Some could even be purchased for a bottle of gin, while the paroles were not supposed to drink it. The paroles were the poor, lower-class people. Tactfully, the party was even inclined to encourage prostitution as an outlet for the instincts which could not be altogether suppressed. Now, in our modern-day version, that would be like porn or webcam horrors and stuff like that. More debauchery did not matter very much so long as that it was futile and joyless and only involved the women of the submerged and the deprived class. Why did it always have to be like this? Why could he not have a woman of his own instead of these filthy scruffles at intervals of the years? But a real love affair was an almost unthinkable event. The women of the party were alike. Chastity was deeply ingrained in all of them as party loyalty. Now, they're disguising party loyalty here as what you would refer to as sexual harassment. That's party loyalty. By carefully and early conditioning by games and cold water, the natural feeling had been driven out of them. His reason told him that there must be exceptions, but his heart did not believe it. They were all impregnable, as the party intended that they should be. And what he wanted more than ever was to be more than ever than to be loved was to break down that wall of virtue, even if it were once in his own life. The sexual act successfully performed was a rebellion. The desire was a thought crime, Winston said. The true love instinct was dangerous to the party. Julia had grasped the inner meaning of the party's sexual puritanism and hatred of meaningful relationships. It was not merely the sex instinct that created a world of its own which was outside of the party's control and which could therefore be destroyed if possible. What was more important, and this is the whole point of why they're doing this, what was more important was that sexual privation induced hysteria, which was desirable because it could be transformed into war fever and leader worship. The way Julia put it was, when you make love, you're using up energy, and afterwards you feel happy and don't give a damn about anything. They cannot bear you to feel like that. They want you to be bursting with energy at all the time. All this marching up and down and cheering and waving flags is simply sex gone sour. It's hysteria. If you were happy inside yourself, why should you get excited about Big Brother and the 3-year plan and all the 2 minutes of hate speech and the rest of their bloody rot? Hate speech would be basically what they're talking about in the article of sexual assault and the Me Too movement. That's hate speech. I mean, not hate speech, it's 2 minutes of hate. That's what it is. It's called the 2 minutes of hate in 1984 where they all get mad and they release that anger. That's what the Me Too movement and all these comprised events, they're basically 1984's version of the 2 minutes of hate. Anyways, that was very true, thought Winston, for how could he fear the hatred and lunacy and credulity which the party needed in its members be kept at the right pitch except by bottling down some powerful instinct and using it as a driving force? The sex impulse was dangerous to the party, and the party had turned it into account. The only recognized purpose for marriage was to get children for the service of the party. That's why in the school system, the Department of Education and the medical system go hand in hand with things like vaccinations and stuff. So they have to be together to implement the agenda of which the party controls the reproduction. For party members, all children were to be begotten by artificial insemination. Artsem, it was called in Newspeak, and brought up in public institutions. This is also along the lines of Brave New World, where they were test tube babies. Same thing. Already we are breaking down the habits of thought which have survived before the revolution. We have cut the links between child and parent, and between man, and between man and woman. No one dares trust a wife or a child or a friend any longer. But in the virtue and in the future, there will be no wives or friends. Children will be taken from their parents at birth, like one takes an egg from a hen. The sex instinct will be eradicated. Procreation will be an animal formality, like the renewal of a ration card. And that's the end of the section. So, that's what they're doing, and that's the agenda that they're trying to push. And the ultimate end goal of this bullcrap here of fines for men in France asking women for phone numbers. There has to be the division between the sexes because they cannot have that for this 1984 agenda. There's separation so that the state can control the reproduction. That's the bottom line. And in our world, it will be more of a technological control than in 1984, where it wasn't as technologically inclined, dystopian type of world like Blade Runner, where you have a technological element that's controlling everything and everything's being watched and tracked and all the rest of it. It's going to be done. It's going to be a dystopian technological society run by the technology controlling and AI and stuff like that. Same principle though. So, anyways, that is what's going on with this article, and that's the agenda, and that's where they intend to push all of it. So, on a last note, just keep your eyes peeled out there, guys. But you men out there, pay attention to what's going on. And remember that I keep telling people this, read 1984. Read Brave New World. Those are the 2 books I suggest you read, and get a hard copy of it, because who knows, they'll probably ban that too. But everything going on in those 2 books are basically the end goal of what all this is The battle plan of that book is unfolding itself in terms of social dynamics and social issues. Everything that we face and see going on in social issues is exactly from those two books. So anyways, I'll see you guys later.